What if everything you've been told about creativity is actually a trap designed to keep you average? We look at the high performer in a creative field, and we see a magician. We define the elite creative as someone who doesn't just have ideas, but someone who manifests them with a terrifying level of consistency. Think of Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't just a painter, he was an anatomist and an engineer who treated the human smile like a mathematical equation. Or look at James Cameron, a man who doesn't just direct movies but builds the submersibles and camera systems required to make them possible. But why do most people with even more talent than these giants eventually flame out? The answer lies in the poison of conventional advice. Most mentors will tell you to wait for the spark or don't overthink the process. They tell you to prioritize your vibe over your variables. They say, just create every day and the success will follow. But if showing up was enough, why is the world filled with starving artists who work 12 hours a day? It's because that advice ignores how the human brain actually achieves flow. Your brain doesn't naturally connect knowledge when it's floating in a void of feeling. It needs a scaffold. It needs a structure that challenges it. So what is the three-step framework that actually separates the icons from the hobbyists? In this video, I'm going to dismantle the inspired amateur and give you the blueprint for the high-performance polymath. We are going to cover the technical deep dive, the cross-domain synthesis, and the brutal science of productive failure. The biggest mistake you are making right now is believing that your creative vision is more important than your technical fluency. Most people operate as dabblers. They know just enough to get by. They know their software, their instrument, or their medium at a surface level. But what happens when your tools become a barrier rather than a bridge? When you aren't a master of the technical foundation, you are constantly experiencing micro-stutters in your brain. You have a great idea, but you have to stop to remember how to use a specific tool. In that 3-second pause, the flow state dies. High performance is about total fluency. How did the world's most successful director use this boring technicality to conquer Hollywood? Take James Cameron. Most directors walk onto a set and ask the cinematographer what is possible. Cameron walks onto a set and tells the engineer how to rewrite the software code for the camera. He spent his early years not just dreaming, but studying the physics of light and the mechanics of optics. Does this mean you need to become an engineer to be an artist? Not necessarily, but you must become an elite technician of your specific craft. You need to build a mental model so deep that the tool becomes an extension of your nervous system. When you don't have to think about how to do it, your brain is free to think about what to do. What is the quantifiable benefit of this invisible mastery? Research suggests that by mastering the low-level mechanics of a skill, you can learn the high-level strategy up to 40% faster. You aren't wasting cognitive load on the basics. But once you have the skill, how do you make sure your ideas aren't just good, but revolutionary? True innovation doesn't happen inside a vacuum. It happens at the intersection of two things that aren't supposed to go together. Why do specialists often hit a ceiling that they can never seem to break through? Let's look at a landmark study on innovation. Researchers looked at 3 types of contributors: specialists, who know one thing deeply; generalists, who know a little about everything; and polymaths, who have deep expertise in one field, but actively import frameworks from another. Which group do you think produced the most patents and high-impact creative works? The answer was the polymaths. The specialists were too rigid, the generalists were too shallow. The polymaths had the foundation from part 1, but they had a second superpower: cross-domain pattern matching. How did a simple calligraphy class change the entire history of personal computing? When Steve Jobs dropped out of college, he sat in on a calligraphy class. At the time, it seemed useless for a tech entrepreneur, but years later he transferred the logic of serif fonts and variable spacing into the Macintosh. Can you see the invisible threads connecting your hobby to your career? High performers are constantly forcing these connections. They don't wait for a light bulb moment. They go on a hunting expedition across different industries. What is the specific exercise you can use today to force your brain into this innovation mode? Every time you learn a new concept, let's say the sunk cost fallacy in economics, you must find 2 examples of it in your creative work. For example, am I keeping this bad character in my novel just because I've already written 50 pages about them? But what if the hardest part isn't finding the idea, but actually surviving the learning process? This is the part that most people hate. We are told that learning should be fun and creativity should feel like play. What if I told you that if your creative process feels easy, you're actually getting worse? There is a psychological concept known as desirable difficulties. Science shows that when we struggle to solve a problem before we are given the solution, our brain marks that information as high priority. Why did the students who failed the most in the short term end up winning in the long term? In studies on productive failure, students who were asked to solve complex math problems without instructions performed poorly at first. However, when they were finally taught the method, they outperformed the instructed group by a massive margin. How can you apply this torture to your own creative routine to see instant results? You use 3 specific techniques. First, interleaving. Stop practicing one thing for hours. If you are a designer, spend 20 minutes on typography, 20 minutes on color theory, and 20 minutes on layout. Why does mixing it up feel like it's failing while actually building permanent skill? Second, spacing. Don't cram your creative work. Your brain needs forgetting time to strengthen the neural pathways. Third, answer before learning. Try to build the website or write the song before you watch the tutorial. Are you willing to look like a failure for 30 minutes to become a master for 30 years? To be a high performer in a creative world, you have to stop acting like an artist and start acting like a scientist of the soul. Are you ready to stop waiting for the muse and start building the machine? Let's recap the 3 pillars. Make your tools invisible. Import ideas from the outside world. Seek out the desirable difficulty. You have the blueprint now, so what is the very first technical tool you're going to master in the next 24 hours?